Good afternoon, everyone. Just waiting for a few more people to filter in, and then we'll get started. Well, since we are recording this, we can go ahead and get started. I just want to thank everyone for joining us on your lunch hour today. Appreciate it. Just consider this a brown bag lunch and learn, so feel free to eat on or off camera. Um, we really just wanted to take an opportunity to talk to you a little bit about our new priority areas for our community grant rounds. So because you're here, you've seen some kind of communication around this. So this is really just an opportunity to talk through that with you a little bit, answer any questions that you might have, hear any um, comments, concerns you might have, and then we can kind of go from there with that. So I'm gonna share my screen. This is really just to keep me on track. I am joined by a few members of our staff that I just wanted to point out. So Corey Shad is our digital communications officer. He'll be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions as we go through, feel free to drop it right in the chat. And then as far as the community grants team, the people that you're going to be speaking with the most that are on this call, my name is Danielle Johnson. I'm the Senior Director for Grants and Programs. I'm joined by Colby Cyrus, who is our Senior Program Manager, Isabel Foss, who is our Program Associate, and Alicia Gonzalez, who is our Grants Manager. So we are the people that you will come in contact with the most throughout the community grant process, from registering with the online portal to answering any questions you might have, or even just brainstorming. But today, we're here to talk about our new priority areas. And I am having trouble advancing this slide. Hmm. Okay, well, I am having trouble advancing the slide, so I'm going to stop share and try again. Okay, well, we're going to run with it. So why are we making this change? So I want to emphasize that there are still two grant rounds per year. You can still apply in either round, but we are putting priority areas on the rounds for a few different reasons. The biggest being that we heard you. So we have been receiving more applications than ever. We went from receiving 25 to 30 in a given round to anywhere from 50 to 80, and that's been consistent over the last several years. And obviously, that means that the number of applications we're receiving is outpacing the growth of our resources. And so we've had to have a lot more conversations around declinations, and which can be frustrating, right? That's frustrating for the applicants, it's frustrating for us. And so we decided to kind of put these priority areas on because we have 77 different funds that we use for our community grant process. And the vast majority of them are restricted, either by purpose or geography or both. And some are more restricted than others. So we may have a fund for youth, which is broad enough, but we may have a fund for youth enrichment in the arts. And so it gets very granular at times. And so one of the things that we were hearing is, how do I know which funds you have at what time, and how do I apply for those funds? The good news is, with our community grant program, you just apply to that grant program, and we try to do the matchmaking on our end after the applications go through the process. But because we're a broad funder and our grant rounds are open, responsive grant rounds, what we found often was that we were comparing apples to oranges. Because we have two rounds, we were setting aside essentially half of our money for a future round, not knowing what was going to come in. So in some cases, we had to pass on proposals that we would have liked to have partnered with, but for the sake of saving the remaining funds for the following round, we did not. And so with these priority areas, we're able to better compare like applications. So if we're saying all arts, for example, applications are going to be prioritized in the spring round, we're hopefully looking at all of the arts applications at the same time. This does lead to fairer comparisons and more timely funding. So we're not saving that other half for the second part of the year. So those are the things that really led us to make this change. And I'm still having trouble advancing the slide, but we'll press on.
Danielle, do you want me to try to share?
Sure. Perfect. Thank you. So these are the priority areas for the upcoming year. So in the spring, we're going to prioritize arts and culture, environment, animals, education, and civic engagement. And in the fall, we're going to be prioritizing health, human services, and economic development. So the spring round, the application will open December 22nd and it will close February 27th. And in the fall, it will open July 6th and close August 28th. If you can just switch to the next slide, Corey. So what this means for applicants, as I said, you can still apply in either round, um, but it will be really important. I sure can. The spring round, the application will open December 22nd and close February 27th. And the fall round will open July 6th and close August 28th. So you can still apply in either round. However, we will be prioritizing spending the money in those different priority areas in the rounds that are specified here. Realizing that many of the projects and proposals are going to span more than one of these priority areas, really having a conversation with our staff is going to be more important than ever. Because in addition to having those 77 different funds, they're all for different amounts. So we may have a fund that gives us about $1,000 a year to spend. We may have one that gives us a $500,000 a year to spend. So if you have a project that could either be education or environment, for example, staff would be able to better direct you to which one you should go for. You will see when you fill out the application that there is an eligibility quiz. So it is a requirement to speak with staff anyway, but the earlier you do that, the better, especially now, given that we're going to be looking to deploy the dollars in these priority areas within specific rounds. And one more, Corey. So what's next? A couple of things. We do have a State of the Community coming up. We're planning on having one twice a year, and each one is going to be focusing on those priority areas in the upcoming round. So on November 5th, from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Philanthropy Center, we're going to be having a State of the Community that focuses on the priority areas for our spring round. And then later on in 2026, we'll be having one that focuses on the priority areas for the fall round. So this is really just an opportunity to hear from nonprofits, to hear from residents about what the greatest challenges in those priority areas are, and really strategize ways that we can address them or best address them. So this is really designed to inform the broader work of the Community Foundation. It's not to say that what comes out of the State of the Community is the only thing that, thank you, Corey, that we're going to be funding. We're still funding the same things, and I'd like to make sure everyone understands that. We're still funding programmatic requests, we're still doing capital projects, and we're still doing organizational development. So the only thing that's changed with our community grants is that we're going to be prioritizing different areas in different rounds. The amount of money that we have is roughly the same, and we're funding the same types of projects. That is my overview of the priority areas, but I just wanted to leave a lot of room for any questions or comments. Really, if you have broader questions, more general questions about the strategy or the work of the foundation, we can do that here. If you have questions that are specific about your organization and where it fits with this, or your projects that fit with this, it's really best to set up an appointment with staff. So you'd reach out to myself, to Colby or Izzy, and we can go into that more in depthly with you. Feel free to any questions in the chat or just raise your hand or come off mic. Corey did make a note that the State of the Community event is sold out, but there's a virtual option so that you can listen in on that.
Danielle, looks like the one question would be what was the date of the second community event for the fall session, but I don't believe we've secured a date yet.
That's correct. I see a question about how we determine selections. So it's actually a pretty robust process. All the staff on the community investment team go through the applications, we read all of them, and we do have a rubric that we use based on various things, but the rubric alone does not make those determinations. So we do extensive due diligence. Any of you that have applied for a community grant before know that we reach out to you, we ask you questions. We like to come and see you and see your program when capacity allows. And then we get back together as a team, formulate recommendations. Then we have a discussion with our grants committee, and ultimately that list goes to our board of directors.
I do want to chime in real quick and just say I've interacted with the team at the Community Foundation, and those sessions, once you submit the application, those sessions to review are very informative, very clarifying, and they do an outstanding job to make sure that you understand where you are, what needs to be tweaked, all of the good things that help support your grant and your outreach.
Thank you, Natty.
And for those asking, I did just repost the priority areas for both the spring round and fall round in the chat.
And I see there was a question about partial funding. Yeah, so as you can imagine, we kind of did a quick analysis of where we've done partial funding versus full funding and the success rate of the projects that were funded. And it would be no surprise that obviously the ones that are more fully funded tend to have better success outcomes. So since then, we had started to prioritize full funding. However, with the number of applications growing the way that it has, we've had to increase the number of partial grants. When we do that, we're really taking a look at if the project or significant pieces of the project can move forward with the partial funding. There is a question in the application that asks about a contingency plan should you not receive full funding. It's really important to answer that question very honestly so that we know whether or not anything that we can do would be meaningful. Because the last thing we want to do is set an organization up for failure if we're not able to fund the whole thing in a significant way, or if we can only fund partially, making sure that it's significant enough.
Danielle, there was a recent question too about is there a dollar limit to each grant award?
For our community grant program, the request amounts range from $10,000 to $150,000. The $150,000 range is typically limited to larger capital requests. So that's projects that are over $1 million in scope. Programmatically, I can tell you that our average grant size is around 25 to 30,000, but it really does vary depending on the type of project, the scope of the project, other funding that might be available. and of course, the available funding on our end. Are there any questions or concerns that anyone has about putting priority areas on the grant rounds? Well, we are growing as a team. So I mentioned myself and Colby and Izzy and Alicia. We are available. We make it a priority to be available and accessible, to have these kinds of conversations. So if anyone would like more information on how this could impact their organization or their programs, please reach out to us. We want to be a partner in your planning.
Okay. I don't I don't see any additional questions in the chat. Again, thank you to Danielle for the information. I know the majority of folks on this call also received an email, with the kind of full breakdown of these changes, but those are also reflected on our website. And again, to reiterate Danielle's comments, please feel free to reach out if anything comes up. And I did see one kind of sneak in here, but um, are your geographical areas still the same for community grants?
Yeah, so primarily it's Onondaga and Madison counties. We do expand into Oswego, Cayuga, and Cortland if the project is for outdoor parks recreation or environmental conservation. Great. Well,
All right.
it's great to see all of you. And again, reach out with any questions, and I look forward to continuing our conversations. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.